Hi, this is Lady Lex UK and this is a Dreams gadget tutorial. Today we are looking at the node, which is the next one along in our logic and processing selection. Right, now you might not be as familiar with this particular gadget because it's not one that you would probably use a lot unless you were really keen on tidying up your wiring, because that is what this node is really for. It allows you to reduce the amount of wires that you have going from gadget to gadget, from microchip to microchip, by acting as a little hub. So you can wire multiple wires into this and have a single wire coming out, or you can wire a single wire going in and multiple wires coming out. Let me show you how that works. What this will do when you use it with a microchip is basically create your own personal gadget. So whatever your program is inside this microchip, this will allow you to add input and output sockets to it. So very, very useful. So let's open up our microchip and stick our node inside. Okay, let's open up the tweak menu on our node. Right, we have options for color. And we have options for custom icons, and we have 3 options here which only one can be selected at any one time. So either no ports at all, an input port, or an output port. So let's choose an input port. Here is our input output sockets on the actual gadget itself, and this gives you a signal. Is input wired, so it sends a signal of 1 or 0 from this wire, a 1 if there is something in its input socket, and a 0 if there is not. I'm not 100% sure the use for that, but there it is as an option. Excuse me. Right, so here is our node. We've selected it as an input port. Let's close this down. Right, now you can see it has placed a little nodule, a little input socket on the left hand side of our microchip box. And if I was to close down our microchip box, we can now see a little node on the side of our microchip gadget. So like a normal gadget now, it's got an input socket that you can wire directly from without having to open up the microchip. This is very useful. So open it up, let's put another node in. This time let's make that an output port, and let's put it on the right hand side. And again, we'll see now we've got an input and an output on our microchip. Now what we're going to do is I'm going to create a little program in here, but I'm going to use the input and the output sockets to put in an input and have an output. So we've got our controller sensor, we're going to make that remote controllable. And I'm going to wire up the L1 button into its input socket of our microchip, and the output socket is going to wire up to our light. So if we turn that on, press L1, it currently doesn't do anything. I've got input into my microchip, but there's nothing that connects it and says what to do, so that does nothing. So we've got to create a program inside our microchip and create our own gadget. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a timer with a visible countdown that is going to send out a signal that's going to turn on that light. And I'm going to have it so that the L1 button is going to do multiple things, which is why I've needed to use a node. So let's put in a few things. So let's open this up a little bit, give us some space. Right, so I'm going to put in a timer and a counter and another counter. I'm going to put in a couple of text displays. Let's make this bigger, stack them on top of each other. And a number displayer as well. So I'm going to select both those text displayers and the number displayer, and I'm going to get rid of the text box and the show border, and hopefully that will do it on all of them. Yes, it has. Right. Okay, I'm also going to add some sound effects. So let's go into sounds. Sound effects. Let's put this air horn in. Right, okay, so when I press the L1 button, this is going to send a signal to my node. I'm going to connect my node to my timer, this counter, and this air horn. So it's running 3 different things, this node now. Now before, if you hadn't used a node, you would be wiring directly from this L1 button into all 3 of these gadgets. Now that's fine, you can still do that, it will absolutely work, but then it means you have 3 wires going into this one microchip instead of the 1. And it's probably a good idea to keep things nice and tidy and nice and neat, to only ever have 1 wire going into a gadget at a time, if you can get away with that. So that's why we've got this node. So now we've got 3 wires inside the microchip, nice and neat, rather than 3 wires coming out from gadget to gadget. Right, now then, I'm going to turn this timer into a countdown. And if you watch the timer gadget tutorial, then you'll know that this timer finish signal does not work with a countdown. So I'm going to have to use the timer finish pulse. So I'm going to put that into our counter here. So that's going to create a signal. And I'm going to put that into the output socket. Our counter here is going to activate our text displays. So I'm going to put that on the power of that one. And the power of that one. And the power of that one. This is going to display the amount of time that's left. So I'm going to put current time into the number displayer input there. And that's it, apart from some text. So let's put some text in. There we go. So we want to put this text, where should we put it? Put it at the top. Light coming on in. There we go. Right, so here is our program then. So when I press the L1 button, it's going into that node. That node is then going to send a signal to the timer, the counter, and the air horn. And the current time is going to be displayed, and this text is going to be displayed. And then when that is finished, it's going to set this counter off, which is then going to send a permanent signal from into the output node. And that in turn is connected to our light. So let's shut that down. Let's turn it on. Okay, I'm going to press L1. And there we go. Light coming on in 3 seconds. 2, 1. Look at it, turned on. Now, if we have another look at that, you'll see there is a slight problem with this text and this light. So let's count down with it. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, on. There's a slight delay. Did you notice that? I'm not quite sure why, but I have a fix. So instead of wiring it directly from the current time into our number displayer, I'm going to put in, setting that up again. Whoops. Didn't mean to grab that. Right, so I'm going to put in a calculator. So I'm going to wire the current time into our calculator and delete that wire. And then I'm going to add, I found that this worked. This is the number that worked for me. So I'm going to add 0.4 to the time there. And now when we run it, 4, 3, 2, 1, on. There we go. That's much better. So there we go. I've created a little program that turns on this light with a countdown that you can visually see. And it doesn't, this gadget here that I've created, okay, so we've got it linked up to a button. We can link it up to a different button very easily. So we can make it the triangle button. This gadget will now run when I press the triangle button, so you can rewire that in. And we can have multiple lights. We can wire up the lights. We can wire this to another gadget, another microchip, so it starts powering on that. And we can manipulate our microchip node pictures, so we can change that, say, to actually I quite like input, because it is an input for that. And then we'll change this node to that, to say that there's a signal coming out, something like that. So now we've changed our microchip, so now there's an input required, and then it's sending out power to whatever you need it to do. So there we go, we've created a gadget that does something. And that's all that microchips are. That's all that they are. They are programs. They're little gadgets in their own right, and all you're doing is wiring in and out from other gadgets. That's basically what it is, and that's what the node allows you to do. Right, I hope that was useful. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you in your dreams.